It is Friday, August 14th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was yet another non-virtual get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. I did not actually get to roll with my partner today, unfortunately, but there's always Monday. I don't know, I might actually try and get in tomorrow. I'm up in the air about that. You know, it all depends on whether or not my partner's available and whether or not I can actually get myself to it. But yeah, so it was a good round, and yeah, I had a lot of fun. We were working I guess it was called a Jello guard, and it was something similar to a reverse De La Riva. And we did the sweep from there, and then we did a back take from there. And I really liked the back take, and so did my partner, because it's kind of, it feels like you're going through a slide, you know, because you're under your opponent, right? Or your opponent feels like he's on a slide, because you kick your legs out slowly, you know, or quickly. I don't know. I did it kind of quickly once or twice, and you bump their legs out from under them, and then they fall and slide down until their buttock is on the ground, and you got both hooks in, and you're going for that back take in that RNC. And so yeah, it was a really fun class. I have a lot of trouble with that reverse De La Riva, because you got to get up on your shoulder to properly apply some of the stuff from there, and I don't know why I keep ending up really flat on my back, and with my lower back on the ground, and that's not really conducive to a lot of the movements that you're trying to do from there. You want to keep your hips nice and free, and at least slightly elevated. and so, like I said, I've been having a little bit of trouble with grounding my hips too much, and I got to remember to kind of curl in a little bit more. I don't know, I'm still having a little bit of sensitivity in my lower back. Man, I messed the shit out of it. But, you know, that's one of those things, you know, you put in the time, crouched really low for an extended period of time, then you turn the wrong way or something like that, and then you're done ski for a little while. But I don't know, I've been able to get around pretty easily, without too much pain, or without any pain most of the time. It's just certain things, you know. It's like my hips are really tight to begin with, and my lower back is pretty tight on top of that, and so it really impacts like any movement where you're doing a transition from standing to seated or crouched or anything like that. And so I don't know. I'm sure I'll work through it within a month or so and be back to normal. But other than that, it was I felt it was a productive class. I would have liked to have rolled a little bit today, but what are you gonna do? There's always, like I said, there's always the next class. I mean, I don't really like to think about it that way, because each class is individual, you know, and it only benefits you to really apply yourself. You know, you're there to benefit yourself. You're there to improve your game. So of course, it only improves you to flex it. But I don't know. I just didn't take up the opportunity to. And actually, my partner wasn't feeling it today. So you know, it was kind of semi-mutual. But I'm definitely going to be making more of a point to get at least one round in. I am feeling a bit better than I have been, you know, as far as my back is concerned, and I felt quite a bit guilty for not hanging around, or maybe nagging him a little harder to roll. But that's just telling me that my body is ready for it. You know, that I'm getting mended enough from my injuries that I'm ready. I'm ready. But it'll come as it will. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. That's really all I got today as far as the techniques and whatnot we were doing today. I always have a lot of trouble getting up on a shoulder like that, and so the one of the approaches that we were doing, I had a lot of trouble with, and it wasn't until like halfway through the class that I figured out that I got to really pull my opponent to me to get them to put their foot far enough forward for me to be able to duck around and under it. I made it a lot easier. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And you know we're going to go with body count. But which one? I don't want to play something off of Carnivore. You know what? I haven't played anything off Bloodlust in a while. And so here it is, the title track, Bloodlust, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Detached. Yeah, I was going to let it run on, but it picked another Prong song. Can't do that. Just breaking form, man. Anywho, as far as what we're going to get into today, I actually did a little digging around and found some good stuff. I swear. You know, I was just looking at something, and it makes me wish I could get rid of some people, you know, online. I don't know. I think that some people are just assholes, you know, and unfortunately some of them are women, and they use the fact that, you know, they're online and they can yeah. Yeah, I'm done with that. I need to, I wish I could, block this person. And I can't. And it's making me angry. Anyway, as far as what we're going to get into today, I'm not going to torture you all with my personal shit. There's enough of that going on. And, but I do have some stuff I did want to go into today. I was digging around a little online, and I found this thing, and I find it kind of humorous, especially because of I think the basis for the legal concern with regard to this thing that I'm going to talk about would probably really affect a lot of proof of stake and DPoS projects. Not necessarily DPoS, but anything where the stake or the interest is determined by another, a trusted entity, you know, somebody who sets the rules and stuff like that, you know. Anyway, that position comes with a lot of responsibility, and just to give you an idea of how it can be abused. You have no further look than Facebook itself and Twitter. They abuse their privilege of their position all the time. You know, they delete shit that doesn't conform to their social expectations, you know, their terms and all that. And you know, that's within their right because they're a private company. But, you know, it's like, you can't really expect that people will go as well as they would like to, you know, without some sort of fear of being chilled, you know, some chilling issues. And that tends to, you know, when you're censoring people, it makes people curate their stuff according to the expectations of the censorship, and that's not free expression. And that's like completely against the First Amendment. So, but I've got a few things that I wanted to get into here, and I just lost it. Damn it, Jim. Yeah, here we go. And this one again, I heard some some mention of validators and some sort of regulation or another. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, so that's watchtowers for Lightning Network, that's validators for any kind of DPoS project or any kind of DeFi project. If they're validating, they're probably going to come under this legal restriction. And I believe it was the Fat F. I'm not sure. Anyway, continuing. This is on Coindesk.com. Masternodes in legal limbo as regulators fail to act. And this is by Grant Gulivson, August 14th, 2020. U.S. regulators have yet to issue clear guidance about whether masternode operators are breaking securities laws. Not that they really should have anything to fucking say about it at all, but continuing. Newest DAO project was thrown a curve, but the team was rolling with it anyway. And this is by Colin Harper. What? No, wrong one. Actually, I had to click on it to get to the right story. This is Masternodes in legal limbo as regulators fail to act. August 14th, 2020 at 16:17 UTC. And this is by Grant Gulivson. So yes, penis. Grant Gulivson is an Illinois licensed attorney in private practice. The views expressed are his and not intended to be legal advice. Last November, Commodities Futures Trading Commission Chairman Heath Tarbert stated that both his agency and the Securities and Exchange Commission were, quote, thinking carefully about Ethereum 2.0's new proof-of-stake transaction validation model. 9 months earlier, the SEC has yet to provide any indication about its conclusion on the subject, as if they should have anything to say, which they really shouldn't. And to the extent that so much of the current crypto industry is built on Ethereum, including most of DeFi, this is a problem. No, it's not, really. It's not. Masternodes, servers on a decentralized network that perform specific services that regular nodes are unable to perform, have always inhabited a gray legal and regulatory area, at least in the context of U.S. securities law. Given the similarities between the staking mechanisms proposed for Ethereum 2.0 and those found in most masternode-based networks, I was hopeful that some guidance from the SEC on Ethereum 2.0 might clear this up, but the agency's silence has left many blockchain networks that use or are considering using masternodes in a state of limbo. What are masternodes? Masternodes are very similar to full nodes on the Bitcoin network, both of which maintain a full copy of the blockchain and perform tasks related to block validation. But masternodes provide other services, such as allowing for anonymous and instant transactions on the primary network. Dash, which is perhaps the best known masternode-based network, utilizes both proof-of-work and proof-of-service algorithms to pay out block rewards. In the later algorithmic model, masternode operators are required to deposit a fixed number of tokens in a wallet that is viewable to the network. In exchange for allocating these tokens and providing additional services to the blockchain network, masternode operators are given a percentage of the block rewards in a revolving queue. As long as the masternode is performing at a minimum acceptable level and the balance in the wallet is maintained, the masternode will remain, quote, in service and stay in the reward queue. But if it starts failing to perform as required or the balance of the wallet falls below a minimum threshold, the masternode is taken offline and sent to the back of the reward queue. Quote, projects that utilize or are considering utilizing masternodes are left in a position all too familiar to the crypto industry as a whole. What does the SEC have to do with this? The starting point for determining whether something qualifies as a, quote, security under U.S. law is by looking at the statutory definition of security, which can be found in 15 U.S.C. 77B(a)(1) and 78C subsection A subsection 10. In both statutes, the term, quote, investment contract is included in the definition of a security, as stated by the SEC in its 2017 Dow report, and is subsequently by several U.S. federal district courts. Most recently, the opinion and order in the SEC versus Telegram case. In arrangements involving digital assets, which include masternodes, we should consider whether they are, quote, investment contracts. So, do masternodes involve investment contracts? In deciding what is an investment contract, the SEC applies the Howey test, named after the defendant in a 1946 Supreme Court case. 3 tests. The SEC's application of the Howey test requires the following 3 elements to be present for a, quote, contract, transaction, or scheme involving digital assets to be considered, quote, an investment contract or security. Number 1, an investment of money. Number 2, with reasonable expectation of profits. And number 3, derived from the efforts of others. Let's consider these in turn as they relate to masternodes. Is there an investment of money? To the extent that masternodes require operators to stake a certain number of tokens to be considered, quote, in service, the answer to whether there is an investment of money involved is clearly yes. The fact that the consideration paid is not in the form of cash is irrelevant to the purposes of this part of the Howey test. That's not true at all. Is there a reasonable expectation of profits? Where masternodes offer block rewards or other financial returns in exchange for staking tokens, the answer to whether there is a reasonable expectation of profits is also, quote, yes, as stated by the U.S. Supreme Court in SEC v. Edwards, 2004. The common sense understanding of profits in the Howey test is simply financial returns on investment. No. Just because you do experience profits does not mean that you expected to gain profits. You just as likely expected to receive a loss from your investment. That's why they call it investment and not making profit. Continuing on. All profits derived from efforts are profits derived from the efforts of others? One could argue that to receive block rewards, operators must, at least theoretically, actively monitor their masternodes to ensure their wallets stay full and the masternode software is updated regularly to avoid being penalized. Thus, the argument goes, quote, any expectation of profits would be derived from the efforts of the masternode operators themselves and not any third party, such as the team behind the network. But, in light of the remedial nature of the U.S. securities legislation, the federal courts have adopted a more realistic test whether the efforts made by those other than the investor are the undeniably significant ones. Those essential managerial efforts which affect the failure or success of the enterprise. That's a different question right there. Because when you're putting yourself up as a node, I think the problem there is in the difference in definition here is that the individual nodes are not performing the thing so much as the collective. Now, if they are individual addresses, that aren't specifically mining a specific TX, it's like some individual node operator is responsible for the state of your transaction or financial activity. in that case, they've placed themselves in this managerial position. This is why we can get away with mining without any kind of real regulation, because the individual nodes in and of themselves are not involved so much as they're involved collectively, that they are not the only ones receiving the transactions. You know, like if I were mining Bitcoin right now, I am not the only one receiving the transactions across the network. There are other nodes on the network that are receiving the same exact information that I am. I'm competing with them to get my information back out to the network and receive my block reward before everybody else does. And so, continuing on, that's the difference. It's one of the reasons why I've been so against Lightning Network, because Lightning Network requires individual nodes whose only purpose is to host these transactions, and not all of the nodes on the Lightning Network are hosting the same transactions, are managing the same volumes. They are managing them for individuals. This makes them a third-party payment service provider, according to every legal definition out there. And so, even if it is that you're just managing your own transactions, if you're involved in a payment channel with other people, you probably need to be regulated at some point. If you're managing their transactions, and if the state of their transactions is dependent upon the function of your nodes, then you do experience some legal liability there, especially in the case where your node is hacked or their funds are somehow otherwise compromised from your node. But yeah, anyway, continuing on. It is therefore the efforts that affect the failure or success of the network as a whole, and not just individual masternodes, which is the current focus of the, quote, efforts of others element. Yeah. Is the network sufficiently decentralized? Ultimately, I believe the question of whether profits from masternodes are, quote, derived from the efforts of others turns on the issue of whether the underlying network as a whole is, quote, sufficiently decentralized. That was the phrase used by SEC Director William Hinman in his June 14, 2018 speech declaring Ethereum, the non-2.0 version, did not trouble U.S. securities laws. And to that end, I would say ICOs don't either. But continuing on, as Director Hinman stated, quote, if the network on which the token or coin is to function is sufficiently decentralized, where purchasers would no longer reasonably expect a person or group to carry out essential managerial or entrepreneurial efforts, the assets may not represent an investment contract. Thus, the fundamental question is whether the profits derived from staking tokens are ultimately dependent upon the efforts of a central management team, ergo, to generate revenue, drive adoption, or further develop the network. If there is a central management team or entity upon which Masternode ROI is dependent, then, absent any additional guidance from the SEC on the subject, there is a high probability operating masternodes on such networks would be considered, by the SEC at least, to involve investment contracts, i.e. securities. Given this, until the SEC offers the industry some guidance on how it views Ethereum 2.0 projects that utilize or are considering utilizing masternodes, are left in a position all too familiar to the crypto industry as a whole, being forced to read the tea leaves instead of relying on clear regulatory guidance. As the growing list of SEC cyber enforcement actions shows, attorneys make lousy fortune tellers. You know what? The fact of the matter is they do not have any say over your shit. You know, how they choose to enforce is so fucking arbitrary and makes absolutely no sense. That's the mystery involved here. I mean, because by every iota of the description of the Howey test, USDT fails. Why? We can't verify the reserves. The expectation about profit thing be damned if we can't verify the fucking reserves under it. Because it's all dependent upon Ifinex. If Ifinex fucks up, everybody's money go away, right? Or if they never had the money, everybody's money goes away. Same destination here, kids. But yeah, so I think this is the biggest problem with any government trying to regulate anything in crypto. For one thing, the requirements that governments have been trying to place on crypto and crypto participants are so fucking onerous and costly versus what we see in legacy markets. And it's fucking criminal. The NYDFS keeping everybody out of New York via the bit license, that is a criminal fucking act. And as a matter of fact, I think they're actually in court with one case about that. But it really wouldn't take the plaintiffs any more than to contrast the number of crypto businesses that were known to exist within the state of New York before the bit license, and then how many that have actually been issued a bit license out of those who have applied. If that is all that they did, if they asked the court to require the NYDFS to bestow upon the court the total number of applicants that they've received and the total number they have disqualified, and more importantly, or almost as importantly I should say, is to compare the regulatory burden that's being expected of crypto applicants versus legacy market participants. I can assure you, none of this rating scandal bullshit would have happened that precipitated the last financial crisis if all of the participants involved were under the same regulatory rubric that the NYDFS is looking to put everybody in crypto under. It just wouldn't have happened. The reporting requirements enough, they would have known like months in advance if there was any kind of kerfuffle going on. But again, it's because these people are not solely interested parties. And so they do not have the necessary experience and know-how to be rating your products. The best individuals out there for that, or the best people for that out there, are the individual miners and investors and developers. If they choose to dedicate their time, money, effort, hardware to a project, that is up to them. They have undertaken that risk. There is no risk to the SEC. There is no risk to the CFTC. None of these people are expected to put a seal of approval on anything in this crypto space, or at least they shouldn't be. And where they have, they've failed. They refuse to consider certain things that are obviously securities while they're dancing all over people who actually have provable reserves backing up their ICO projects that do not qualify as securities as described by the SEC's mandate because of this. It's a whole different story if the money can't be proven to exist. It's like if I've got a volume of 10,000 Ethereum and I can prove to the world that I have them, if I'm issuing tokens against them, that is up to you to decide whether or not you want to purchase those tokens at the face value that I'm expressing or another that the market may find for it. But the SEC doesn't have any place in there. I mean, and it's obvious that they don't, just from the fact that they continue to fail to catch people scamming in legacy markets. And there are several of them out there that have managed to finagle their way all the way to the top on nothing more than a bunch of bullshit, getting worth billions of dollars on nothing but speculative bullshit, And they've got the SEC stamp of approval. They're providing the SEC with all the right cues that say, yes, we're a healthy, functioning animal, and there's nothing wrong here, man. You don't need to do any enforcement actions with us. We got it all under control, man. Everything's cool. They provide those signals because the SEC gives them guidance of what signals that they want, and as long as those signals are smelling good, everything's cool. It doesn't matter how many people bring up red flags. The SEC is receiving their money. Their auditors are coming back and saying everything is cool, so everything is cool. It doesn't matter that they're really not qualified to judge what these projects are or how they function. It doesn't matter that they don't really have a stake in it beyond the kickback or whatever they're getting. And so their interest level in what you're doing is relatively minimal. You have to be worth like $100 billion, and then they start caring about you. And I think that was one of the things with Coinbase is, they really didn't mess with them until they were worth, over $10 billion, and then it was like, okay, we're going to have to regulate you like some sort of bank or whatever, and a custodian and all that other shit. And so, of course, Coinbase has to hire a bunch of lobbyists and lawyers, start drawing up little barriers for that they, at their market cap, can afford to deal with, but you, in your market cap, cannot. But, this is just like firearms. And firearms will be with human beings until the end of time. And there's a very simple reason for it, is that firearms started off as a homebrew kind of thing. And a happy union of alchemy and a little chemistry. Well, actually chemistry, and at some points they're the same thing. Anyway, continuing on, that it's always been a homebrew thing, at least since like 500 AD or something like that. That people like you and me have been futzing around in their workshops and making guns. Gunsmithing is a family endeavor. That's why all the best guns have names that sound a lot like people's last names. It's because they are people's last names, and it's from the family that originated the design or the weapon itself. And I think that Bitcoin, what it did to digital finance is it made it possible for the minting of coin to go back to being a thing similar to gunsmithing, and that it is a homebrew thing, that everybody can participate in it. If you can dedicate the know-how and apply it to some hardware, you can get good results. And same principles involved. And all you really need to participate in it, though, is a brain, and a nervous system, and a body. That's about it. And a little bit of understanding. The rest of it you can acquire. And it's not like it's hidden knowledge that's, just buried away in a cave. They only reveal it to hermit aspirants on every other full moon or some shit like that. No, it's widely available. There are YouTube videos out there telling you how to do it. There's instructionals telling you how to do it. Find it in text format. Find it in streaming format. You could probably find somebody in like Telegram or Discord or something like that to walk you through something if you're really hung up on it. There are resources available. And again, the barrier for entry just is fucking non-existent. And so I think that for that reason, crypto is going to stay pretty much like that. That you will have to have an interest in the coin that you're participating in or that you're using as money. It's not going to be something like the Swift network where you don't know what the monetary unit is that they're circulating in the background. You just know that in the representative token that you have, $323.44 in your bank account. That's all you know. You don't know whether the bank itself actually has that, what percentage of nothing that your balance represents. or in any of that. And that's one of the things that cryptocurrencies allowed us to get away from, is this idea that we gotta trust some central bank somewhere when they tell us that we have $523.44 in our bank account. And we just got to accept whatever fees that they want to apply to our transactive activity because they're providing the service. And, this is again where I've found that any second layer stuff, it's all bullshit. It's all going to get regulated to fuck because it's all interceding into realms that Bitcoin was designed specifically to avoid. Why do you think it's peer-to-peer digital cash? It's so I don't need a third party in order to convey the funds that I have in my wallet to you with your wallet. That's why. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And let's see. What to play, though? What to play? I think it's time for a little bit of Coal Chamber. I haven't played them in a while. And so here it is. Big Truck. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Voivod with Forgotten in Space. And so I did do some digging around. And I actually had this earlier. And this is something that I wanted to kind of get into. Because it puts a little bit of contrast on what we've been seeing with regard to the heel dragging on the part of the SEC, with regard to what kind of comments and what kind of advisories they want to give about nodes or anything like that. It's because of this, or at least partially, or this is a factor, I should say. And this is on the federalregister.gov. Service details on Federal Reserve actions to support interbank settlement of instant payments. And this notice by the Federal Reserve System on August 11th, 2020. Agency Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Action. Service announcement. Summary. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System Board has approved the FedNow service as described in this announcement. FedNow service is a new interbank 24/7 365 real-time gross settlement service with clearing functionality to support instant payments in the United States. The new service will support banks' provision of end-to-end instant payment services and will provide infrastructure to promote ubiquitous, safe, and efficient instant payments in the United States. Date, September 10th, 2020. Holy shit, the day before September 11th. Holy crap! Continuing on. For further information, contact Kristen Wells, principal economist, and it gives us phone numbers in here. Supplementary information. Introduction. The payment system is a core part of our nation's infrastructure. For more than a century, the Federal Reserve has provided payment and settlement services to promote an accessible, safe, and efficient U.S. payment system. Throughout its history, the Federal Reserve has provided these services alongside and in support of private sector service providers. The Federal Reserve banks, fulfill this statutory role by offering services that provide core infrastructure for financial transactions, including check, automated clearinghouses, ACH, and funds transfer services. The operational role provides key public benefits, including enhanced resiliency, healthy competition, increased innovation, and more equitable access. Bullshit. The Federal Reserve does not have plenary regulatory or supervisory authority over payments. This operational role has also helped catalyze fundamental improvements in the nation's payment system. This role in the payment system has allowed the Federal Reserve to advance its broader mission, beyond functioning as the payment systems for the United States, in providing the nation with a modern, safe, and effective financial system. Consistent with this history, beginning in 2013, the Federal Reserve launched a collaborative initiative with a broad array of stakeholders to improve the speed, safety, and efficiency of the U.S. payment system. As part of this initiative, the Federal Reserve and stakeholders identified the need for instant payment capabilities in the United States that would allow individuals and businesses to conduct and complete payments almost immediately, around the clock, every day of the year, and provide a receiver with access to funds in seconds, instant payments. The ability to both send and receive funds instantly allows individuals and businesses greater flexibility and control to manage their money and make time-sensitive payments. This flexibility in turn may help alleviate mismatches between the time that incoming funds are available for use and the time that such funds are needed for other purposes. For individuals, instant payments reduces the need for high-cost borrowing and the risk of associated penalties such as overdraft or late fees. Instant payments could be particularly helpful for individuals facing financial constraints or in times of crisis when there is a heightened need to move money quickly and access funds almost immediately. For businesses and in particular for small businesses, the ability to receive funds in near real time may result in better cash flow management in normal times, and this may be especially important in periods of stress. Instant payments may also provide businesses with considerable opportunity to improve efficiency and reduce costs of payments relative to paper checks and other existing payment methods. In light of these and many other potential benefits, the board and the board's set of stakeholders determined that a core infrastructure is essential to support the development and availability of instant payment services. In particular, stakeholders recommended that the Federal Reserve explore and assess the need for an operational role in instant payments to develop a 24/7, 365 settlement service to support such payments. This sentiment was echoed by the U.S. Treasury. It was also supported by the vast majority of over 400 comments received by the board in 2018 in response to a board proposal of potential actions to support instant payments in the United States, the 2018 notice. As a result of this extensive consultation with a wide variety of stakeholders, the board announced via public notice in August 2019, the 2019 notice, that the reserve banks would develop the FedNow service, an interbank 24/7, 365 real-time gross settlement service with integrated clearing functionality to support instant payments in the United States. In making its decision, the board concluded that the Federal Reserve's operation of such a 24/7, 365 RTGS service would be the most effective approach to advance the Federal Reserve's and industry's objective of ubiquitous, safe, and efficient instant payments in the United States. Basically, they want to make Bitcoin, they want to make an altcoin, continuing. Consistent with the Federal Reserve's historical role in supporting payment system improvements, the board concluded that the Reserve's bank operation of FedNow service would support broader modernization of the nation's payment system as the industry moves towards instant payments. Serving as an operator would be consistent with the Federal Reserve's historical role as a provider of payment services alongside the private sector, which is currently the established model for almost every major payment system in the United States. An operational role for the Federal Reserve would also help ensure competition in the market, an outcome that the United States Government Accountability Office concluded benefits consumers in other payment systems. Notably, over the course of the Federal Reserve's multi-year engagement with the industry on instant payments, only one private sector txed service for instant payments has been established in the United States, the existing private sector service. That's not at all true. Bitcoin, 5,000 motherfucking altcoins out there. Continuing on. The board's analysis supporting the decision to develop the FedNow service indicated that the existing private sector service was likely to remain the sole private sector provider of txed services for instant payments in the United States. The board explained in the 2019 notice that no traditional payment system in the United States has only a single private sector provider, and that such an outcome would create significant risks to the safety and the efficiency of the nation's payment system. In particular, the board explained that a single private sector service would face significant challenges in establishing an accessible infrastructure for instant payments with nationwide reach, would result in limited competition that would have negative effects on pricing and innovation, and could create a single point of failure in the nation's instant payment infrastructure. Holy shit, they recognized that by not getting rid of us, that they benefit. Holy shit. See, this is why I think they're remaining really fluid with regard to regulatory frameworks, is because they have not established the regulatory demands of just their nodes that they're going to be managing in the FedNow system. They don't know what kind of network it is. Okay, this is all just like proposal. And they're basically saying, don't get too aggressive with throwing down footprints yet, because you might end up tripping us up in the later term, and we don't want you to do that. So continuing on. In light of these significant risks, the board determined that an operational role would allow the Federal Reserve to advance a number of important objectives, including establishing an accessible nationwide infrastructure, fostering stability in these times of crisis, supporting resiliency through redundancy, and stimulating healthy competition for clearing and settling instant payments. See, now they're basically saying it's all our idea that back in 2013 we didn't get all aggressive about this, and it's all our idea that there's this burgeoning industry. Bullshit! Bunch of fucking kids got together in their fucking garages, in their dormitories, in their mom's basement, and they made this shit happen. Continuing. Given their operational role in providing payment and settlement services, the reserve banks have established broad reach and invested in connections and customer service relationships with more than 10,000 diverse financial institutions, both small and large, across the country. This reach, in turn, will support the Federal Reserve's ability to provide a nationwide infrastructure for instant payments through the FedNow service, furthering the goal of ubiquitous instant payments in the United States by connecting banks across the nation. Yeah, they're basically I think they're basically planning their own private blockchain, and that they're going to end up getting hacked. Continuing. As a result, banks of every size in every community will have the ability to offer instant payment services to their customers, which is essential to their ability to meet evolving customer demands effectively. This in turn will ensure that individuals and businesses across the country have the ability to use such services regardless of geography. Yeah, basically they're trying to compete with Bitcoin. And see, this is why I think they're going to fail on that front. Because they already have a very, very successful product in the Federal Reserve Note, the physical Federal Reserve Note. Works just fine. It's great service. Thank you very much, Federal Reserve. Now, if you would just stop debasing it on the back end, we might invest more of our monetary value into it. But because of your actions, we're looking outside of the scope of your capabilities of your services. And one of the great things that we can offer people in crypto that you cannot is the ability to obfuscate the source and recipient and quantity and sum of our commerce from all participants who may be wanting to monitor and or tax that activity. We can effectively shield it and still conduct it entirely digitally. And because you cannot provide that service, Doge is going to end up kicking your ass. Because Doge can dispassionately convey transactions from P to P anywhere on fucking planet Earth, while you, with your FedNow service, cannot. Continuing on. The Federal Reserve has also historically played a role in promoting the safety of the U.S. payment system by providing liquidity and operational continuity in times of crisis. Serving in an operational role in instant payments will allow the Federal Reserve additional capacity in the future to respond to financial turmoil, natural disasters, and other crises as it has done in the past. In addition, providing access to more than one RTGS service for instant payments for backup purposes will enhance resiliency by reducing the risks caused by a single point of failure. Yeah, there they are, fucking adopting our nomenclature. No, Fed, you are the central point of failure. Continuing on. The FedNow service will also promote competition by providing choice of instant payment services in the market. Competition exists in nearly every payment system in the United States today, including funds transfers, ACH, checks, and card transactions. The board's analysis indicated that choice in RTGS services for instant payments would most likely result in efficiencies related to pricing, service quality, and innovation. Moreover, it will give banks and third-party service providers a neutral infrastructure to build on, allowing them to offer a variety of innovative and convenient instant payment services to individuals and businesses. Yeah, basically they're trying to draw themselves up as like an Ethereum kind of thing. And again, they'll probably be doing their mining straight from like ATM machines or some shit like that. They're probably mining at ATM machines now. What the fuck am I talking about? They've been participating at some level in cryptocurrencies since, like they say, about 2013. So, yeah, continuing on. An overview of the FedNow service. The FedNow service will be available to banks in the United States and will enable individuals and businesses to send instant payments any time of day, any day of the year, through their bank accounts. An instant payment facilitated by the FedNow service begins when a sender, that is an individual or business, initiates a payment using a service provided by their bank, such as a banking application accessed on a computer, tablet, or mobile device. As the sender's bank receives this request, it will send a message through the FedNow service to the receiver's bank with information about the payment. Upon receipt of this message, the receiver's bank will indicate whether it intends to accept the payment. If it intends to accept the payment, the receiver's bank will send a positive confirmation back, and upon receipt of the FedNow service, will transfer the funds between the Federal Reserve accounts associated with the banks. Each bank will debit and credit their customer's account accordingly. The entire process is intended to take place in a matter of seconds, so the receiver will have funds available to use in near real time. Completed payments will be final, meaning they are irrevocable. Basically, they're trying to adopt immutability there. But here's the thing, and they've got an annotation there. Let's open that in another tab here to see exactly what that is. Let's see, where were we at? We were on 15 or irrevocable. Okay, so that's 15. This does not prevent banks from implementing procedures to resolve erroneous payments or the ability for the receiver to send a new transaction to return funds in certain circumstances. See the discussion of return of transfers as part of the payment flow and message types discussion in Section 3. Okay, so yeah, back there. From a technical perspective, the FedNow service will be designed to maintain uninterrupted 24/7 365 processing with the security features to support payment integrity and data security. The FedNow service will enable credit transfers that support a range of different types of payments for individuals and businesses, and will also support a transfer of supplemental information, such as invoices related to a payment. The service will have a 24-hour business day each day of the week, including weekends and holidays. End-of-day balances will be reported on Federal Reserve accounting records for each participating bank on each FedNow service business day. Access to intraday credit will be provided to participants in the FedNow service. Because instant payment services such as the FedNow service process and settle each payment separately and continuously on a 24/7 365 basis, participants will need adequate funds or available credit, liquidity, in their accounts at all times in order to settle each payment. In some circumstances, banks with account balances beyond their current needs may supply liquidity to those facing a shortfall. Typically, banks can use a service like FedWire Fund Service to conduct such liquidity transfers. However, when those services are closed, participants in FedNow service or the existing private sector service may need an alternative method to transfer liquidity. To facilitate such transfers, the FedNow service will provide a liquidity management tool to support instant payment services that will be a critical enabler not only of the FedNow service, but also existing private sector service. The tool will enable participants in the FedNow service to transfer funds to one another to support liquidity needs related to payment activity in the FedNow service. The tool will also support participants in a private sector instant payment service backed by a joint account at a reserve bank by enabling transfers between the master accounts of participants and a joint account. Access to the tool will be available to users regardless of whether they are full participants using the FedNow service to send instant payments between end users, or if they use the FedNow service only to make liquidity transfers. The tool will be available during specific hours. For example, when such transfers are not currently possible through other Federal Reserve services. The Federal Reserve is committed to using widely accepted standards in designating the FedNow service to aid in accomplishing the key goals of achieving nationwide reach for instant payments and providing interoperability with the existing private sector service. To support these goals, the service will use the widely accepted ISO 20022 standard, 20,022 standard, and adopt other industry best practices that would remove barriers to interoperability in order to avoid unnecessary and burdensome incompatibilities to the extent the existing private sector service also uses publicly available, widely accepted standards. Okay. The Federal Reserve intends to launch the FedNow service as soon as practicably possible. Although the target release date remains 2023 or 2024, the Federal Reserve intends to announce a more specific time frame for launch, as well as earlier pilot programs through established Reserve Bank channels once additional work is completed. This and other work related to the implementation of the FedNow service is ongoing and includes development of the necessary infrastructure, integration with existing Federal Reserve systems, and continued engagement with industry stakeholders on features and design. The Federal Reserve will take a phased approach to providing additional features and functionality over time. Although this may result in the introduction of certain desirable features for the initial release, this approach will ensure the core features and functionality are delivered as quickly as possible. The board believes this approach most appropriately balances the competing demands for the Federal Reserve to launch the FedNow service quickly and to provide enhanced features beyond core capabilities. Specifically, the first release of the FedNow service will provide baseline functionality that will support market needs and help banks manage the transition to a 24/7 365 service. The first release will also offer additional optional features where there is high demand, such as fraud protection tools, the ability to join initially as a receive-only participant, requests for payment capability, and tools to support participants in their handling of payment inquiries, reconciliations, and certain exceptions. Other aspects of the services, such as fee structure and governing terms, will be announced prior to the launch of the service through established Reserve Bank communication channels. Yeah, whatever. The Federal Reserve also recognizes that market needs and technology related to instant payments are constantly evolving and intends to continue engaging with stakeholders and remain flexible in its approach when building out additional features and functionality of the FedNow service. Based on ongoing stakeholder engagement, additional features and service enhancements will be introduced over time. For example, the service will endeavor to offer additional features in the initial period following launch to support alias-based payments, such as directories, as well as fraud prevention, error resolution, or case management tools. Other features in the future might include support for bulk payments or enhanced remittance information. The Federal Reserve will continue to engage with stakeholders on these and other more complex considerations, such as cross-border capability. Jesus Christ. These people are literally trying to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is running. It's called Bitcoin. Continuing on. Organization of notice. This notice provides a high-level discussion of the comments received by the board in response to the 2019 notice, Section 2. The notice details the core features and functionality of the FedNow service at launch and related comments considered by the board, Section 3. Section 3 also outlines the Federal Reserve's approach to the introduction of additional features and service announcements that may be offered in subsequent phases. Lastly, this notice provides a final competitive impact analysis of the FedNow service, Section 4. Further communications about the FedNow service, including but not limited to technical specifications, detailed product offerings, pricing, and implementation timeline, will be provided through established channels, such as frbservices.org. Comment summary. The board received 182 comments in response to the 2019 notice. Of those comment letters, 3 included signatures from multiple parties for a total of 353 entries responding to the 2019 notice. Comments were submitted by a wide variety of stakeholders for the following segments: small and mid-sized banks, large banks, individuals, consumer organizations, merchants, service providers, private sector operators, financial technology companies, fintechs, trade organizations, and other interested parties. Overall, small and mid-sized banks were the largest group of respondents, providing more than 40% of the total comment letters and representing institutions from 25 states. Trade organizations submitted letters representing several commenter segments, including small and mid-sized banks, large banks, merchants, fintechs, and service providers. Generally, these letters aligned with the comments submitted by the respondents in the same segment as the trade organization's membership. The majority of comments provided specific feedback on features and functionality of the FedNow service. While this section provides an overview of comments, a more detailed discussion of the comments can be found in Sections 3 and 4. The board received 2,246 form letters from individuals. These form letters argued that the Federal Reserve should not operate in competition with the private sector and viewed the discussion to develop and implement the FedNow service as an inappropriate expansion of the Federal Reserve's role that is inconsistent with its historical purpose. Generally, these commenters stated that the introduction of the FedNow service would lead to decreased innovation and unfair competition with the private sector. These topics were addressed by the board as part of its analysis in the 2019 notice. In the 2019 notice, the board provided the rationale for its conclusion that the Federal Reserve should offer the FedNow service. This rationale was based on input received in response to the board's 2018 notice requesting comment on the Federal Reserve's role in the payment system and whether to develop the FedNow service. Approximately 80 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, and individuals, addressed the proposed implementation timeframe for the service. Nearly all of the commenters stated that the Federal Reserve should accelerate development and bring the FedNow service to market sooner than the anticipated implementation date of 2023 or 2024. In general, these commenters indicated that the FedNow service should be made available as soon as possible. These commenters generally believed that market needs and technology for instant payments are rapidly evolving, and that an earlier implementation would better support innovation and widespread adoption of the FedNow service and instant payments more broadly. Approximately 75 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, service providers, recommended that the FedNow service offer enhanced functionality that participants can use to mitigate fraud. While a majority of these commenters agreed that the banks are primarily responsible for combating fraud related to the accounts of their customers, most suggested that the reserve banks should nevertheless provide enhanced fraud prevention tools for FedNow service participants. Most of these commenters offered specific recommendations as to how fraud prevention tools should be designed and implemented. Two commenters, however, stated that fraud prevention tools for the FedNow service should be provided by the private sector and not the reserve banks. Approximately 80 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, and fintechs, address the inclusion of directory services to support alias-based payments as part of the FedNow service. Now see, that's something they can't offer you. They can't guarantee that, and they can't really offer it to you. They've already suggested that that might be something that they offer as an initial thing, and they were very clear in the use of that word, initial. And in the context that they were using it in, it's like this. Up front, it's $15. It's $15. $15 gets you in the door. But after you're in the door, we're going to hit you for more. And we're going to provide you with less service. We're going to adjust down the freedom that you currently have, such as alias-based. No. That shit's going to be tied to your fucking Social Security account. But yeah, I think that... wait. We're actually getting into where it's going to intersect here with crypto. Check this out. So approximately 80 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, and fintechs, address the inclusion of directory services to support alias-based payments as part of the FedNow service. Nearly all of these commenters noted that availability of a directory, whether provided by the reserve banks or the private sector, would support widespread adoption of the service for person-to-person payments and reduce payment routing errors. Approximately 40 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, and individuals, described potential approaches to the development of directory services, with most of these commenters recommending that the FedNow service provide either a centralized link to existing directories or build its own directory. Several commenters raised various other considerations with respect to directory services and highlighted potential complexities with day-to-day management of a directory service, such as protecting data privacy and security. Approximately 100 commenters, representing all commenter segments, expressed views related to interoperability. Nearly all 100 commenters highlighted the benefits of interoperability between the FedNow service and the existing private sector service. I'd really like to know what they're talking about when they say private sector service. Are they talking about private banks? Are they talking about SWIFT? Are they talking about Bitcoin? Are they talking about Dogecoin? Are they talking about Ripple? What the fuck are they talking about? Anyway, continuing. Approximately 40 commenters representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, service providers expressed the view that interoperability would provide ubiquitous access to instant payments in the United States and support widespread usage and adoption of instant payments. Approximately 35 commenters, largely representing small and mid-sized banks, trade organizations, and other interested parties, noted that interoperability would streamline operations for banks and service providers, allow for a consistent end-user experience with respect to funds availability, and generally promote efficiencies and savings. Very few commenters express views on how interoperability should be achieved, and many commenters appeared to use varying operational definitions of interoperability. Yeah, I think that we've delved enough of this. We've given these guys more than enough of our attention. I got two predictions. Number one, it's not going to work. That they're probably going to end up facing the same regulatory burdens that Facebook was, especially where it comes to cross-border payments. And this again is one of the pain points where they're simply going to be incapable of competing with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, because these are international currency standards. They're recognized on exchanges all over the fucking planet. They're exchangeable for fiat currencies all over the fucking planet. If anything, at this point, the amount of US dollars or other fiat currencies that other people are willing to put up against Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies exemplifies their quality, that people would be willing to pay US dollars or other fiat currencies for them, in exchange for them. So again, I think that the Federal Reserve, they really ought to stick to just issuing and managing their fucking coin, which is the US dollar and other dollar-denominated certificates and bonds and bills and whatever. Okay? That's their realm. They should stick within their lane. They will do just fine. They will make a lot of fucking money just staying within their lane. But see, it's never good enough for them. They have to have their fingers in every fucking thing out there. And the problem with being that way about crypto is that unless you can afford to debase your currency unit just so you can maintain operations, you're going to lose. And the problem is that they're not debasing it just for themselves. They're debasing it for every single person on planet Earth that is circulating those things as fucking currency units. To everybody who's using it as money, they're debasing it. I tried to briefly tell this to somebody recently that, and I've said it on the show a million fucking times, that when you're looking at the volatility of, say, Bitcoin or Ethereum versus the US dollar, the quote-unquote volatility, it's usually the cryptocurrency appreciating vastly and then depreciating vastly. Now, what you can do in other markets, you can fuck around in other markets in ways that you can't in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, because they are of limited supply and they are of limited issuance. And because of this, because we are dealing with live ammo here, people pay that much closer attention to what's going on with those coins. And because of that, when the Federal Reserve issues, $2 or $3 trillion new dollars out of fucking thin air, that afflicts the exchange rate between Bitcoin and those US dollars. So you're looking at a relationship. It is not just the US dollar and then there's Bitcoin over there and it's just valuated. No. There are two separate currency units. Two separate monetary systems, networks. And because of that, and despite the fact there is relationships and pain points along the way where the US dollar does interact with cryptocurrencies and other fiat currencies do, they're not solely dependent on them. At some point you could take the hardware, and if you were just able to connect to somebody else or utilize their hardware, that you could be sending coins out there. But yeah, so I think the funny part is that they're only now starting to come to terms with the fact that they've been replaced by hobbyists. They were effectively replaced by hobbyists. When Bitcoin went live and it was functional, they were replaced by hobbyists. They've got these fucking international networks, these exclusive networks that only they can transact on, and they're getting played by a bunch of kids. And that's the reality behind this. And we can dress it up with terminology and bullshit, but that's the reality. That hobbyists with hardware circa 2006 replaced the Federal Reserve System. And we have yet to come to full terms with what a radical alteration that is of the global economy. Some aspects have gone more global, and yet we're finding that some aspects need to get a little more national. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. Just a song or two before we close this one out for the night. I'm in need of a little bit of water. But you know what? I haven't played any White Zombie tonight. Black Sunshine here on Coin Metal. And that was Infectious Grooves with Three-Headed Mind Pollution. And it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Not even FedNow. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I haven't picked anything out as per normal. But I think this one is kind of appropriate as we're heading into the weekend. And so here it is, Ministry. Let's go. Last Dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.